Hello everyone, how's it going? I'm Marvel Moose, and today we're going to be making a realistic version of a Marvel comic. Yeah, I've done this before. I did it with Spider-Man and Deadpool. Go check that out if you haven't seen it. I basically just take a comic book cover from the Marvel comics, and I just make it realistic with all the resources there are on the interweb. Yep, the interweb. That's what people call it these days. The comic I've chosen for today's episode is Marvel Comics The Variant Covers. It's a pretty cool result actually, so stick around. Let's go. I decided to skip the parts where I actually go around the internet looking for these pictures because it was a long process and it took me a minute to get right, so I just collaged it all together without any shading or anything and just put them onto the image over the top of the comic book. At the moment I'm just shading it to make it sort of work a bit more. It's just a rough ambient shadow, nothing too serious yet, but it does get a lot darker and a lot more mysterious as we go along. I decided to start with a torso because it is the centerpiece and I want to get that right, because I sort of knew for a fact that the harder part was adding the fire to the head and to the chain. The most difficult and very much annoying part of this whole process was trying to get it to blend properly because they're all from different places, and the Wolverine arm I chose was really dodgy. The lighting on it was awful, so trying to get it to blend with the rest of the torso was so annoying. So I tried these different methods, like trying to make it look cracked, but that didn't really work. So I just shaded it a lot and it sort of looked a little bit better. I'm not that happy with that. But like, how accurate can you get it if they're all just random pieces of different superheroes merged together? Like, you can't get it that realistic looking. It doesn't need to look that realistic, it just needs to look feasible and good. Don't even get me started on Iron Man's legs either. It was seriously just the most irritating thing about this entire thing, except for the fire towards the end. But like, it's just trying to make something look reflective when there's not going to be any direct light on it is really hard to do, especially without trying to steal so many images off the internet that aren't related to Iron Man. So I just kind of give up on it towards the end and I fix it up as best as I can. But hey, it is what it is. This right here was definitely the weirdest part of the entire piece. I was trying to make Captain America have large pecs, like in the comic books. He has just huge pecs. It's insane. So I tried to replicate that with a harsh shadow in the middle, and from a distance it definitely works. The scale of Hulk's arm was very difficult to measure up against the rest of the character that we're making here, but you know, it's unrealistic, so it doesn't really need to be that realistic, and it did help a lot. Here we're moving on to the comic book box full of comic books. This was a definitely interesting addition to it, because I decided to draw it. It was much easier to just draw it over the top of it than try and get something the exact same shape as it. And so I just drew all the comic books in as well. It was easier to do that. It would have taken too long to try and get all the lighting right on it. It's a bit of a cheat, but at the same time, no, it's pretty hard to draw in Photoshop without a Wacom tablet, but I also don't think I need one. I just used a mouse and it was just, you know, I think it suits the style at the end of it. The comic book box definitely suits the style of the rest of the piece at the end. Every single time I make a speed art sort of video based on Photoshop, I realize how schizophrenic my work pattern is, especially towards the middle of the project when I've got a bunch of things incomplete looking. I jump from one thing to another without actually fully completing the other thing, because I think I'll just fix it later, which I do, but it's very funny watching myself work like that, because I just keep going back and keep trying to add little things here and there, and it's super annoying. Why don't I just focus on one thing and then go to the next thing and work on that? But nope, never do that. Here I'm adding a little highlights to things like the side of Spidey's face and Doctor Strange's levitation cloak, just to get this sort of feeling that there's going to be light coming from the left, because I really wanted a bright light coming from the left to sort of light up the whole character in a way, so you can see most of it. But I did want it to be dark and spooky too, to make it even more realistic, so he's like in the shadows a bit, so I can have the fire really stand out at the top. Here it got to the point where having the actual comic book underneath of all of the mayhem that I was creating on top was getting super distracting, and once I got rid of it and just made it a standard solid dark grey color background, man, it really helped to see what I was actually looking at, because I think it's pretty important to sort of see what you're looking at there. And I snuck in a bit of an Amazing Fantasy reference in the front there. Now here comes my favorite part of every single Photoshop piece I do, which is the glow and the lighting. I really love doing it. It just brings that sort of realism and makes the image look less static and a bit more three-dimensional. It gives it some sort of depth, and I always love doing it. I've got the way I do it down pat now, and it's something I always look forward to doing in every piece I do. You'll often find all my pieces that I do, which are on my Instagram page. You want to go check that out, and on my Talent House page. I post more on my Talent House page. I've got so many pieces, and they all are very dark, and they have that glow, and it's sort of I guess it's sort of part of my style at this point. Here I am again, fiddling with the Iron Man leg. Oh, that thing drove me so mad during this entire thing. I honestly wish I chose a different leg, but it was too perfect, and I couldn't really just give it up. It was super annoying there. It just distracted me a lot. I'd be doing my own thing, and then I'd look at it, and I'd be like, ew! Another thing I drew in was Deadpool's katana at the back of the Doctor Strange cloak. It's a really subtle detail that I almost completely forgot about, so I'm glad I didn't, because that would be really embarrassing. And I mean, there's nothing to it. It was a pretty simple geometric shape. Is that a geometric shape? I have no idea. Here I move on to the Wolverine claws, another really painful thing that I completely forgot about that I was going to have to do, and that was making them look reflective without actually making them reflective, which is what the opposite of what I wanted to do with the Iron Man leg. So I don't know what is worse, to be honest, but these also drove me mad, especially when I was adding the fire in on top. Man, it was a painful process, and I think they look sort of reflective. I mean, nothing in this looks realistic, so that kind of helps and contributes to that, but hey. So, we've got some bad news here. It's not really bad news for me, but I didn't the fire thing was so difficult and irritating to do that it took literally 2 hours of my life to do it. I know it took 2 hours to try and get the fire right, so I decided not to record it. I did it off camera, but believe me, I did it. You can see it right here. I did it. And that leads us to the end of this project. I actually went to the camera raw filter in Photoshop and just to touch it up a bit, and I think it looks pretty cool, I reckon. The fire does give it that flair that it needed. It makes it look less static and a bit more 3D. And I'm really happy with this result. I didn't think it was going to be this good looking, to be honest. I didn't think it was going to look this good. I thought it was going to be a complete disaster, because when I first saw it, I'm like, I want to do it, but I know it's going to take so much time and it's going to be hard to get right. But I think I got it right, and it definitely... I decided not to add the other comic books floating around him, but I think it adds to it. I honestly think it looks better like this. So these are the two. This is the original one that Marvel actually made, and here's my realistic version of it. Which one do you like more? Please say mine. I put in, I think it was like nearly 10 hours of work for this, so... wow. That's... okay. Anyway, please like the video. Please like the video. It was a lot of work, and please subscribe because it was a lot of work, and let me know if you want me to do another one of these. I think I'll do a more tame version of it next time, not so crazy. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and arrivederci, losers.